Hey guys, welcome back. This is the story about what if Naruto married Hanabi. Before we start, please subscribe to the channel and like the video as well, it really means a lot. So let's start the what if. Konoha General Hospital, Konoha, January 2nd, AK-22. I can't take no for an answer. You don't understand. I have to help her. Sorry, there's just nothing I can do. Medical ninjutsu tells me that this is a vegetative state and my clan techniques confirm that diagnosis. And her condition is getting worse. I don't think she'll survive the night. Ino. Aren't you one of the best medics in the entire village? Do something. Shikamaru closed his eyes as a blonde black-clad boy wearing a white cloak depicting his sage status grabbed a sobbing Ino by the shoulders and shook her repeatedly. Normally, Shikamaru would have told his friend to calm down, but Shikamaru knew that this was Naruto's way of showing grief. Naruto! Ino yelled back, in tears. Sakura may be your girlfriend, but she is my best friend. Don't you think I would do something if I could? Even if Lady Tsunade were still alive, she wouldn't be able to do anything to help. It's almost as impossible as bringing a dead person back to life. Gaara died. And he's still alive. There must be. Naruto, Shikamaru interjected. Naruto was beginning to spout nonsense. Shikamaru knew that it was time to get involved before Naruto started suggesting forbidden techniques. Many evil ninjas had started their walk down the path to darkness with the best of intentions. You know as well as I do that the technique Lady Chio used was a forbidden technique. Unless you're asking Ino to exchange her life for Sakura's, you might want to stop this. This isn't just hard on you, it's hard on all of us. You're hardly the only person in the village who cares about Sakura. But the blonde sage retorted before falling silent. Shikamaru slowly nodded in approval as Naruto calmed down. Shikamaru had to admit that Naruto matured a great deal over the last 6 years. He figured it was the gauntlet of high-rank missions that Naruto was constantly sent on. Seeing people regularly die and seeing the bloody unwanted ramifications of words said in a heated fit of anger were the fastest, although not necessarily the easiest, way for a person to mature. Sorry, Ino, Naruto said in a low tone. I should have been more mature about this by now. After all of us know the risks of being a ninja. Ino gave the other blonde a hug. But your concern and compassionate for others makes you who you are. That's not a bad thing, Naruto. I'm just glad that Sakura has a caring boyfriend like you. Wham! The door swung open, revealing a breathless Kakashi and Shizen. I heard the news from Naruto's clone and I came as soon as I could. What happened? The masked ninja asked without preamble. More details. Shikamaru nodded at Naruto to signal for him to elaborate. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura and I got into an argument and she had just left my place. It had been around 30 minutes since she left when I heard her scream from a few blocks away. I rushed out and found her entire body covered with seals. I managed to disrupt the sealing from taking complete effect, but after that Sakura just fell down and didn't move. Naruto recounted. Shikamaru grimaced in trepidation. Naruto sounded rather calm, but there was hurt and anger just beneath the surface. Naruto clearly felt that he was partially to blame considering since he and Sakura had gotten into the argument that had Sakura running outside late at night. Shikamaru didn't know who the culprit was, but the culprit would not get to live for long once Naruto got his hands on him or her. And the prognosis? The 6th Hokage looked at Ino, the village's master on the mind. Ino shook her head. She might as well be dead, Lord Hokage. Her brain is a complete mess. I checked with both medical ninjutsu and my clan ninjutsu. Kakashi nodded. I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to ask Shizen to take a quick look as well. It can't hurt to have another opinion. Kakashi signaled for the medic to run through some diagnostic tests. Sorry, guys, Naruto interrupted sadly, but I think I'm going to go back home since there's nothing I can do here. I'll be back in the morning. Kakashi nodded. I'll be here then to give you an update. Let's hope that she survives the night. Naruto didn't comment on that. Shikamaru watched as Naruto just slipped by them to leave the room with his head down. You're taking it better than I thought, Shikamaru commented to the Hokage after the door closed. Even if you're the Hokage and have to look at all of your subordinates equally, she's still your student. Well, it wouldn't be the first time I had someone close to me pass away before their time, Kakashi said grimly. I suppose you could say that I'm used to it by now. He looked towards the door. It's probably much harder on Naruto. Lord Hiruzen, Lord Jiraiya, Lady Tsunade, Chunin Yumino, and now Sakura. I'm worried that he's going to have no one he's close with in the village. There's you, Shikamaru pointed out with a frown. Don't sell yourself short. You know Naruto cares a lot about you. Perhaps, the Hokage allowed. Nonetheless, I'm still concerned about his state of mind. About that, Ino stood up and wiped away her tears. Shikamaru narrowed his eyes when her eyes went hard. Ino only got that look on the most dangerous of missions. Something about Naruto's story doesn't add up. What do you mean? Kakashi inquired. Are you saying he lied? Naruto has definitely matured in the last 6 years, but he's still very open and emotional when it comes to Sakura. I doubt he could hide his feelings. Since when did Naruto let Sakura walk back home by herself? Ino demanded. Even when they weren't dating, he always followed around her like a guard dog. It doesn't matter if they were fighting. He would have tried to apologize to her the entire way back. Shikamaru closed his eyes to think. That was true. Naruto hated it when others thought he needed support or protection and would lash out angrily. But Naruto himself always treated those around him like fragile pieces of art that needed to be handled with the utmost care. Despite Sakura being the strongest kunoichi in the village, Naruto made her protection as one of his top priorities. It was a poorly kept secret that Sakura acted annoyed but was secretly delighted with all the coddling. You're right, Shikamaru admitted. At the very least, he would have sent a clone along with Sakura. Even assuming Naruto genuinely forgot, what are the chances that Sakura would be attacked the one moment that Naruto took his eyes off of her? I am assuming that's why you lied to all of us about Sakura's mental state. Shizun looked up from Sakura. Sakura's perfectly fine as far as physical health. Mentally, she just appears as if she's asleep. Ino crossed her arms. When I used my mind-body dive technique on Sakura, I noticed that her consciousness was locked away with a seal. It was incredibly advanced Fuinjutsu and covered extremely well with a genjutsu that made her appear as if she was brain dead. I don't know what exactly happened, but something seems wrong about this entire situation. Fuinjutsu. Naruto did mention seals earlier, Kakashi murmured. The sixth walked over to the pink-haired woman lying on the bed. Here, take me in with you. I'll try to see if I can break it. There was only silence for a few minutes as the two entered Sakura's mind. Nope, Kakashi said as he opened his eyes. There's nothing I can do. Whoever put this on her is definitely a master at the sealing arts. It's too risky to try and disrupt the seal. It might destroy her mind if we tamper with it carelessly. Are you saying Naruto placed this on her? Shizun asked incredulously as Ino opened her eyes as well. Naruto doesn't even know Fuinjutsu. And we know that Naruto loves Sakura. He'd give his life for her. Ino shook her head. No, I know that Naruto cares. I also did a mind-body dive on him without him knowing earlier when he was still here. He has no memory of hurting her. Naruto was distracted with thoughts of ramen just after Sakura left and forgot to follow her. Only Naruto. Kakashi muttered. Shikamaru could tell that Kakashi wanted to slap his forehead. Shikamaru didn't blame him. Who the hell liked ramen of all things so much that it would be more important than protecting a loved one? Even Naruto normally didn't have that short of an attention span. Unless... Shikamaru's eyes widened before understanding what Ino meant. Someone had put a genjutsu that disguised the seal inside Sakura's mind. "You're saying someone put a genjutsu on Naruto to keep him out of the way?" he asked suddenly. His old teammate nodded at him. Considering that the genjutsu made it appear like Sakura was cognitively dead for all practical purposes, I think someone was hoping that we'd pull the plug on her ourselves. It would be an easy and untraceable way of killing someone. No blood and no outside damages. The genjutsu and fuinjutsu would disappear the moment she was killed, leaving no chakra traces as well. Since it was obvious that the attacker made contact with Naruto, I felt it best to fool Naruto in hopes of getting the attacker to think that the ploy was a success. Shikamaru nodded in approval at her quick thinking. To trick the enemy, you often had to trick your own allies as well. "I see," Kakashi said. "I suppose this helps in other ways too." Naruto would be here all day and night until Sakura woke up if he didn't think she was going to die. Shikamaru agreed. Naruto would adhere to his never give up nindo and stay next to Sakura as a show of support, refusing any missions that would take him away from her side for more than a few hours. But given Naruto's strategic importance out on the field, it was bad for Konoha. "This entire thing is just too troublesome," he muttered. "Why do I have to think about the ramifications of every single event that goes on in our damn village?" Kakashi didn't have to tell Shikamaru that it was because he was the ANBU commander. Shikamaru had a duty to ensure the protection of the village at all costs. He was the knight on the chessboard, often placed strategically and hard to predict, but ultimately a sacrifice for the village. His complaints were minor in comparison to what would happen to the children and the future generations of people if Konoha fell. Still, Shikamaru hated keeping things from his friends, especially someone like Naruto who would never understand why. Naruto still had not completely forgiven Kakashi and the now deceased former leaders for keeping information about his heritage hidden. Kakashi gave a bitter chuckle. "I understand you more than anyone else. But we don't have that kind of luxury." All four of them in the room knew what the sixth was talking about. There was a long pause. Shikamaru met Shizen's look. She wasn't too happy with this either, but looked willing to comply for now. He sighed in resignation. "All right, I won't tell him." As of that moment, Sakura Haruno was officially dead. Hokage Monument, Konoha, January 2nd, AK 22. Love. What a foolish emotion. It makes us hope for the best and never be prepared for the worst, Naruto whispered as he stared out at the village. "I really was an idiot for hoping that my love would cure all. In the end, people only care about themselves. In the end, no one truly loved him. They loved what they thought he was, protector of Konoha and someone who sacrificed everything for those precious to him. They didn't love who they thought he was, prankster and someone who jumped in before thinking about anything. And they didn't even know who he truly was. Underneath my ass," he snorted, "they can't even see beneath one layer." He sighed as he looked up at the stars. "No more. I don't think I want to love again. It just isn't worth it." He would die before he let himself be betrayed again. 2 months later. Training Grounds, Konoha, February 28, AK 22. Hanabi Hyuga was a powerful ninja. Despite being only 17 years old, she was one of the powerful 25 or so Konoha ninjas classified as A-ranked or higher in the data books. She could count the number of Konoha kunoichi stronger than her on one hand and still have fingers left over. Power was what continued to give her breathing room within her clan. It had saved her from getting sealed at a young age. It kept her father and the elders of the main house wary and respectful. Strength was what kept the danger away. She had always felt that the clan's ways and traditions were like a boa constrictor squeezing the life out of her. She would not live her life as a trapped bird or a cornered rat. She was strong. Despite her strength, however, she was not a natural genius like her late cousin. Her skills were earned through blood, sweat, and tears. It was this mindset that led Hanabi out of her clan compound and towards the normal training grounds. Once Niji had died in the war, Hanabi realized that her family's style of fighting was insufficient in the face of overwhelming power. Niji had been a genius of the gentle fist. There were even whispers that he was even more powerful than her father, especially since her father was out of practice. But even someone as skilled as Niji had perished in the war. The original gentle fist was a highly defensive style that forced the practitioner to move within a relatively small radius close to the ground. The mid-range 8 trigrams vacuum palm, her sister's unique protection of the 8 trigrams 64 palms technique, and a larger Kaiten radius somewhat extended the reach of the gentle fist user, but that did not change the fact that the gentle fist was highly limited. Hanabi initially tried to make simple modifications in the gentle fist techniques to make them less rigid and more fluid. Instead of using abrupt turns and sharp strikes, she flowed with her blows and used her agility to slide into her next move instead of pulling back. To allow her to fight even in the air, she added jumps and chakra-releasing kicks and jumps to give her more maneuverability. The last thing her enemies would see would be a captivating dance before their lives were cut short. Boom! She froze when she heard an explosion going off nearby in one of the training grounds. Her eyes narrowed and she turned her Byakugan on. No one trained at this time of the night, and especially not with loud and destructive ninjutsu. It probably was a fight. It took a few minutes and a couple more explosions before she arrived on training ground 7. She saw a blonde young man about to throw what looked like a chakra shuriken at one of the few trees remaining on that side of the training grounds. Given the appearance, it probably was the legendary wind release, Raisin Shuriken, the technique of the legendary toad sage Naruto Uzumaki, the clan head of the newest noble clan Uzumaki. Lord Uzumaki. Ah, the young man turned around and the ball of chakra dissipated. Hanabi saw markings disappear from his eyes. You're Hanabi, right? I was not aware that we were on first-name basis, Lord Uzumaki, Hanabi answered in an irritated tone. She wasn't nearly the stickler for formality as her father was, but she still valued in maintaining outward respect for others. Well, I give you permission now. You can call me Naruto. And I'll call you Hanabi. It would be strange to call you Hyuga since I'm familiar with some others in your clan. Lord Uzumaki, she said coolly, ignoring his displeased look. If he wanted to annoy her, then she would annoy him by disregarding his wishes. What are you doing out at this time? The immediate response was a deadpan look. What do you think? The sage said, pointing to the craters in the training grounds. I'm practicing my ninjutsu. At this time, she inquired, slightly surprised. She hadn't thought a legend like Sage Naruto would even need to practice. I highly doubt that this is a part of your regular training routine. Ah, well, about that, Uzumaki's mood suddenly plummeted. I'm trying to distract myself. Distract yourself? Well, that, and let anyone who might be watching know that I have everything under control. She gave him a strange look. She wondered if it was an unspoken law that S-ranked ninjas had to have some kind of strange quirk. The sixth was an open pervert. And the teacher of her cousin's teammate Lee was rather unusual as well. How does destroyed half a training ground with ridiculously dangerous ninjutsu at midnight convince anyone that you're in the right state of mind? Well, because I'm known to be rather brash and rowdy. One of my missions was successful, but ended up with a ton of collateral damage and took the lives of a few of civilians that I had been protecting. If I went back home and acted as if nothing were wrong, Kakashi-sensei would never leave me alone. I'm fine and I understand that being a ninja is risky business, but they don't think I know that. By showing him the tantrum that he expects, I'll have to deal with fewer people trying to fuss over me. That made sense. Sort of. Although, Hanabi wondered why Uzumaki didn't bother trying to change the opinions of those around him instead of just reinforcing the negative reputation he had. It was almost as if he wanted to be known as an immature child. Well, anyway, enough of me. So little firecracker, what brings you out this late? Hanabi was jerked out of her thoughts. I'm not firecracker, my name is Hanabi, fireworks, she quipped immediately before realizing that the response just made her sound childish. She was tempted to glare as the sage laughed. Aren't you a cute little girl? But, you didn't answer my question. Well, Hanabi started out slowly. She didn't want to tell him about her training routine. She was trying to incorporate ninjutsu into her style to give it more range and versatility. The only problem was that her father and the elders would not be pleased. They strictly followed the Hyuga tradition of using purely the gentle fist to fight. Her modifications already were stretching the rules. So she decided to do her new training late at night and out in the training grounds instead of the clan compound so that no one would find out. So it would be bad if the news somehow got back to her clan. Aha! I know. You were doing something naughty. Uzumaki crowed in victory. Hanabi controlled herself as best as she could, but she felt her face flush red in anger and embarrassment at the insinuation. Still, it was best if he thought she was doing something perverted rather than find out about her training. So she would further mislead him. Lord Uzumaki. She growled out. How and where I spend my nights is none of your business. The blonde ignored her comment. Ah, Hanabi is being a rebellious little teen, he cooed. She was about to retort angrily when the sage became completely serious. Don't worry, you can tell me. My lips are sealed. What? She looked at him incredulously. Did he think that she was going to tell him details about her love life just because he wasn't going to tell anyone else? Admittedly, being the daughter of an intimidating clan head and a princess of the strongest noble clan in the village, she had no love life, but she wasn't going to say that to anyone. Uzumaki rolled his eyes. Look, it's crystal clear that you're doing some kind of forbidden training that you don't want your clan finding out about. Hanabi was floored. Did the man read her mind? How? Did the man know how to read minds? She had given no indications that she was training or that she was trying to avoid detection by her clan. The mood suddenly became light again. Oh, I get it. You thought I implied you were doing something perverted, huh? She wanted to growl in frustration but settled for repeating her previous question politely. How did you know? If someone as notoriously unobservant as Uzumaki was able to find her out, then she needed to figure out where she went wrong. Wearing training garb with training gear, chakra levels at nearly full capacity, wide awake, heading towards direction of training ground 41 before turning to come here. That couldn't be the case. Even if you were a sensor, I wasn't even using chakra before I changed directions. Tell me the truth. How did you really know? Uzumaki grinned. Now, that would be kissing and telling. In any case, like I said, my lips are sealed. I promise. And I never go back on my word. So don't feel too upset that you were caught. Uzumaki and his promises were famous throughout the village. There were rumors that because he used to house the greatest of the bijou, he was subject to the laws of demons. And there were plenty of old folklores saying that demons were unable to break their promises. Hanabi didn't really believe in any of those tales, but she knew that Uzumaki had never broken a single promise to date. Her secret was safe. It's not just that, Hanabi murmured softly, calming down with a few deep breaths. Oh? Uzumaki just raised an eyebrow. I'm also frustrated that I got caught. It just reminds me how far behind I am compared to a legend like you. The sage nodded. You're an elite in the ninja arts, one of the strongest in your clan's history. But you're trying to break out of the shell of an A rank and move into the territory of the masters. In strength, you seek to remove the shackles placed on you by your clan. In power, you hope to find freedom. Hanabi didn't even react to the comment. She figured by now that the sage was somehow able to read her mind. She would have to settle for not outwardly embarrassing herself. She was skilled at maintaining her distance from others behind a wall of formality, but the Toad Sage managed to tear that wall down in less than 10 minutes. She briefly wondered if this was why Hinata still had the tendency to blush brightly and even occasionally faint in front of the man. The Toad Sage just had a way of getting reactions out of people. There are many days that I wish I hadn't been born as a Hyuga. My sister has found her purpose in trying to fix our clan. But for me, I feel that the clan is preventing me from discovering my own purpose. Father tells me that the clan is everything and the bonds of family should be placed above all else, but…" She trailed off. "You want to be acknowledged as your own person," Uzumaki said knowingly. "I understand how that feels. At first, people saw the Kyuubi instead of me. Eventually, they acknowledged me, but they saw me as the one holding a bijou. They saw me as an instrument of war. My life has been defined by that. Even now, they fail to see me as me. They see the Toad Sage, the apprentice of the Lord Jiraiya, the Uzumaki clan head, the son of the Yellow Flash, and the golden son of Konoha who led the Grand Alliance to victory in the Fourth Shinobi World War." Hanabi noticed something change in those blue eyes. She couldn't determine exactly what it was, but it reminded her of the first time she saw him. Flashback. Hanabi, pay close attention to this battle. Niji possesses the thickest Hyuga blood. His eyes surpass those of your sister. Even more than big sisters? Hanabi asked. Yes, and mostly even yours, her father replied. As her father had commanded, she paid close attention to the battle. But her eyes were drawn towards the orange-clad boy. Byakugan, she whispered. She looked at his body movements, his eyes, and the atmosphere around him. Even after he was hit with the 8 trigrams 64 palms and had no chakra flowing through his chakra points, he never lost his confidence. She heard some people laugh at the boy's bravado, but she noticed something different. She couldn't figure out what was drawing her attention to the boy, but she knew that there was more to this boy than what most people saw. Father, she tugged at her father's sleeve. Who is that boy that Niji is fighting? His name is Naruto Uzumaki. Be wary around him. Hanabi could certainly agree with that. There was just something odd about Uzumaki, even beyond the strange red chakra he was using to defeat her cousin. End flashback. Hanabi reflected on that. Perhaps that's what she saw in him all those years ago. A kindred spirit not only searching but also struggling to find an identity. Well? She snapped her attention back to him. Yes. Uzumaki was giving her an expectant look, but she didn't know what he wanted. Don't you think this is a grand opportunity? Uzumaki said with a happy look. The setting is perfect, with the nice calm evening wind and the moon is bright. Some would say that something magical could happen tonight. For a second, Hanabi just stood there as she processed his words. Then, she felt chakra raging around her hands and feet menacingly before realizing just who she was about to assault and calming down. Lord Uzumaki, don't you think you have better things to do than to make passes at someone you have only met a handful of times? She tried to say the words in the most polite way she could, but couldn't hold back the annoyed tone in her voice. Uzumaki ignored her and fixed her with a stare before circling around her like a hawk. Not bad. Not bad at all. You look quite flexible, too. Hanabi found her self-control beginning to crumble. She was respectful and polite, but there was only blatant flirting she could take without retaliating in some manner. She snapped when she found him completely ignoring her and ogling at certain private areas of her body. She was wearing the traditional Hyuga training robe, which didn't show much at all, but it was the principle of the matter. She struck at him with chakra-coated feet and palms and took a stance as he jumped a few meters away with a small smile. 8 trigrams vacuum palm, she screamed out, trying to blast the pervert away. Her eyes widened as she felt a change in the atmosphere and saw the sage backhand the invisible pulse of chakra and knock it to the side where it detonated on a tree. What a ridiculously fierce aura. This feeling. She suddenly discovered that her breath was ragged from the incredibly pressure around her. But that feeling disappeared as quickly as it came. The gentle fist techniques, the sage said in a serious tone, with the sole exception of the chakra-intensive Kaiten, are most effective with direct contact. Aside from issues with lack of agility, which are resolved by a primarily defensive stance, there are nearly no flaws in the gentle fist, so a fight at close range with a gentle fist user is usually deadly. The only way to fight Gentle Fist user is to attack from distance, since they have neither the range nor the mobility to reach beyond a certain distance. Even if the attacks themselves do not work, the Gentle Fist user will eventually tire. Hanabi stood there stunned at his sudden change in attitude and his skill. Not only was he completely right about the weaknesses of the Gentle Fist style, the sage had initially been less than half a meter away from her, well within the fighting range of a Hyuga, and he had still taken no damage. Ah! She stammered. Okay, the sage smiled. I'll train you for tonight. We'll magically transform you to a kick-ass kunoichi by the morning. He frowned and put his finger to his chin before adding, not that you aren't already, of course. Ha! She was so confused that she was reduced to using one-word responses. Uzumaki looked at her and sighed dramatically. You're out here to train, right? I just got a glance at your stance, which tells me a lot about how you fight, and one of your signature techniques. I've thoroughly examined your body, so I know what types of movements you are capable of. I'm offering you a rare chance to be trained by the Toad Sage. Isn't that great? But... She stammered again, weren't you flirting with me? Weren't you making comments about my body and how you wanted to, sleep with me? He looked confused at that and then smiled innocently before pointing at himself. Who? Me? She nodded dumbly. Nope, he said after thinking for a few seconds. Can't recall doing so. I remember commenting on the weather, saying that it's great for some magical training, and then commenting on your stance and physical condition. Flashback. Aha! I know. You were doing something naughty. Uzumaki crowed in victory. Break. Don't you think this is a grand opportunity? Uzumaki said with a happy look. The setting is perfect, with the nice calm evening wind and the moon is bright. Some would say that something magical could happen tonight. Break. Uzumaki ignored her and fixed her with a stare before circling around her like a hawk. Not bad. Not bad at all. You look quite flexible, too. Break. The mood suddenly became light again. Oh, I get it. You thought I implied you were doing something perverted, huh? End flashback. Hanabi groaned out loud, not even caring that she was in front of someone else. You tricked me again. The sage laughed at her. I have no idea what you're talking about. I did no such thing. You just have a dirty mind, accusing me of flirting when I was just trying to help you out. I wasn't expecting something like that. She pathetically said, ignoring his denial. Ninjas often spoke in doublespeak and triplespeak, so it was obvious that the man wasn't going to admit to anything openly. She held her head down in shame. The sage had been testing her and she hadn't even come close to passing. Uzumaki put his finger on his chin to think. Now, I'm assuming that you're trying to build upon your Gentle Fist rather than starting over from scratch. Judging from your strikes, it seems as if you developed a Gentle Fist style that incorporates jumps and kicks instead of only the traditional palm strikes. No offense, but your range still sucks, and your ranged attacks suck even more. Hanabi looked glumly at the area that had been completely blasted to bits by her technique and pointed. That pathetic, huh? Not pathetic, she had expected to see him taunting her or making another annoying comment, but he was giving her a serious look, but not well suited to your style. There was a strange confidence in his words. The sage was stating things as if they were simple facts. She was confused. Almost everything she heard about the young Toad Sage seemed to be wrong. From the older generation, she learned that he was brash, loud, immature, and disrespectful. From the younger generation, including Hinata, she learned that while he was incredibly powerful, compassionate, and loyal, he was lacking in intelligence. But her own experiences told her something else altogether: he was deadly. She could feel the power in that aura of his just waiting to be unleashed. You know, she replied, nodding when he asked her if he could touch her, you're not at all what people say you are. That's so. Uzumaki laughed softly at that before walking to her and holding her arms in different fighting positions to see which of them would best suit her. She noted that he was taking extreme care not to be indecent. He was simply touching her as a master would his disciple than a man would a woman. Yeah. For some reason, the fact that he was so proper made her feel more self-conscious than if he were actually enjoying being that close to her and touching her. Why is my heart beating so quickly? Hanabi thought. I barely met him and he's having such a strange effect on me. Tell me, what chakra natures can you use? She found herself responding automatically without even thinking about the consequences of freely giving away information. The sage's charisma somehow had greatly affected her. My chakra leans towards wind, but I can also use water. I don't have too many techniques though. I just learned the bare minimum to become a jounin. Until recently, I focused almost exclusively on the gentle fist. The sage nodded before fixing her with an intense gaze. Wind and water, huh? He paused. What a coincidence. She kept staring at him with her white eyes as his blue eyes bore into her. There was so much an emotion in that gaze of his, but, despite those emotions being in plain sight for her to read, she could not decipher any of them. He was definitely not what people said he was. He was the perfect example of what a shinobi should be. Powerful. Intelligent. But most of all, deceptive. Hokage's office, Konoha, March 1st, AK-22. Kakashi-sensei, am I on your shit list or something? Kakashi found himself sighing in exasperation for what had to be the millionth time since becoming the sixth. He was irritated whenever Naruto was involved because he never found the time to read Ika Ika. The series had gone on even after Lord Jiraiya's death. The editors had been given the mountains of notes that Jiraiya had written and had more than enough notes to continue the stories. It was a good thing, too. Otherwise, Kakashi might have thrown himself off the Hokage monument in despair. Naruto. Language. Naruto merely rolled his eyes at Shizen. Shizen had continued to work as the Hokage's aide after having done the job for so long under Tsunade. Kakashi had been too lazy to find a new assistant and Shizen had wanted to remain as the Hokage's assistant to eventually help Naruto better when he became Hokage. That was the official excuse, at least. Kakashi smiled as he looked at the woman fondly. Neither of them would reveal the true reason. Kakashi turned his attention back to the situation at hand. Naruto was dramatically waving his hands in the air in an exaggerated attempt to be polite. I suppose this would be better then. Kakashi rolled his single visible eye at the sarcastic tone. His student was going to do something childish. Again. Sure enough, Naruto took a quick bow. My liege, your humble servant begs to be killed. It is better for this sinner to perish than to suffer the wrath of my lord. Kakashi sighed yet again while Shizen, the traitor, giggled. Naruto always had been difficult to handle because of his energy and stubbornness, but had been easy to manipulate in the past. Offering techniques or information about his parents went a long way in getting Naruto to behave. Lately, however, it was getting much harder to trick Naruto into falling in line. Perhaps the direct and honest approach was the best. Naruto, I am merely trying to do what is best for you and for the village. Contrary to what you might believe, I am not trying to hurt you. While Konoha's economic and military strength is at an all-time high, that's only in terms of numbers. The quality of our ninja is at its all-time low. During Lord Hashirama's time, we had over 50 A ranks and 7 S ranks. We only have half those numbers with only 25 A ranks and 3 S ranks even when we've been out of war for 6 years. Naruto crossed his arms. I understand. You're telling me that I should teach a bunch of brats because it would help me mature and that Konoha can benefit from having another team like the Sannin, especially after our team fell apart. I am the youngest ninja to reach S-ranked status since Itachi and you believe that I can impart that knowledge and drive to these kids. Kakashi almost let out a sigh of relief. Naruto was still loud and obnoxious at times, but he could be insightful and dedicated when he chose to be. Now all he needed to do was stamp the damn document and then find a secret closet where no one could find him so he could read his Ika. Very good. I'm glad you UND. The answer's still no, Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi suppressed an urge to bang his head on his table. This day just wouldn't end. Look, I know you think I'm being unreasonable, but try to look at things from my perspective. You had me running almost 40 consecutive S-ranked missions, most of them solo, over the last 2 years. That's more S-ranked missions than what some of our strongest elite jounin do in a lifetime. You still had me going on these missions even after my ex-girlfriend died. I never got to mourn properly. Then on top of that, you always make sure to do your best to time my mission so that I'm always in the village to suffer through that monthly hell called council meetings. And now you're telling me that you want to shove a bunch of brats onto me. Kakashi wanted to break something. Perhaps that was why Lady Tsunade always started and ended the day with some sort of property-damaging move. This job was just too annoying. People complained, people demanded, people never listened and never ever praised. Kakashi would cackle with glee the day Naruto took this damn job away from him. If it makes you feel any better, Lady Tsunade had me going on consecutive S-ranked missions after the Sand Sound invasion. That was when I was still teaching the three of you. So it's not like I've been asking you to do something I wouldn't. You, more than anyone else, understand that sacrifices need to be made. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. The old man used to love saying that. Kakashi noted the glazed look in Blonde's eyes. It was clear that he was reminiscing about the old days. He was probably the most compassionate of all the Hokages, with a heart for the poor. It was true. The third was often unable to make hard choices or often made the wrong choices because he was too compassionate. Naruto's early life was the consequence of one such choice. But at the same time, that compassion for the poor was why Konoha was economically the healthiest of all the nations. Cleaning up the streets and educating and empowering the poor made for a more skilled and less violent population. Naruto, for the last 6+ years, I've had to allocate resources where they were needed the most. That's why I was held off from giving you students. You were needed for other critical missions. Our numbers were ridiculously low after the last war, and despite the era of peace that followed, there were lots of missions to be done. You were the only one who could complete these missions at the insanely fast pace that you set. And that bought us a ton of breathing room. Now, even in the wake of recent attacks on our border, we have the luxury of assigning you students and building up the future generation. I'm trying to give you a break here. Naruto glared at him. A break? Naruto asked incredulously. How is being responsible for 3 lives a break? At least on solo S ranks I don't have to worry about protecting other people. Kakashi groaned. He could just never win with Naruto no matter how he tried to phrase things. Once Naruto decided that something was a certain way, there was no convincing him otherwise. How about a compromise? I'll let you choose your own students. Don't care, Naruto folded his arms. It's like asking me to pick which poison I want to be fed. It's like me asking you which of your Ika books you're willing to let me burn. How about I teach the kids and I burn your Ika books? Kakashi twitched. It almost seemed like his student was being difficult on purpose. That, and the damn boy had the gall to threaten his precious. No one threatened Kami's gift to man and got away with it. Shizen jumped in at this point. Kakashi gave her a quick nod of thanks. He was 1 second away from driving a Raikiri through the cheeky brat's chest. It might be best if someone else tried to talk reason into the boy. Kakashi watched as Shizen walked over and gave Naruto a hug. It was always like this with Naruto. He would play bad cop and then she would play good cop. Naruto usually was more agreeable when Shizen delivered the bad news. Naruto, is there anything we can do for you to do this? Shizen, shouldn't you be on my side? The masked bastard has been overworking me and now he wants to control my life. Kakashi-sensei, don't think I don't know what you're doing. You're worried because you think I don't have any more ties to the village. Most of the people close to me are dead or out of the village. So you're trying to use this opportunity to get me to make more bonds so you can be assured of my loyalty. Kakashi winced. Naruto didn't mince any words. It was true. Kakashi was worried that Naruto had no ties to the village anymore. But, at the same time, Kakashi didn't doubt Naruto's loyalty. Kakashi was trying to ease Naruto's loneliness by giving him students. Look, Kakashi said, I was like this as well after all my close friends died. I joined ANBU to isolate myself as much as possible. And remember that I didn't pass any team before yours? Well, it's because I didn't want to pass any teams. I know what you're going through and I'm trying to help. I do not doubt your loyalty at all. Kakashi looked mournfully at his student. I'm sad that you think so little of me. Naruto sighed. Okay. I'll do it. But I want something in return. I only want to take missions that I approve of. No more of these pointless political assassinations or preemptive strikes in the name of protecting Konoha. You're tired of making hard decisions, but Kakashi-sensei, I'm tired of executing your hard decisions out on the field. I'm really tired. Kakashi nodded. It was the least he could do. The casualty rates would skyrocket, but it seemed like Kakashi had pushed Naruto a bit too hard. Any more and they would lose him. That would be disastrous. Not just for Konoha, but for him as well. He had a responsibility to take care of his sensei's only son and his best friend's legacy. Within Naruto lived Obito's true feelings. Kakashi would do anything to ensure those feelings never died. Alright, we have a deal. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry for what I made you do over the years. Outskirts of the Land of Rice Fields, March 1st, AK-22. Ranmaru activated his eyes and set up illusions in case anyone was following. The illusions were only visual and would fade upon touch, but it would buy him some time. Time he needed to talk to his sensei. You are late, my minion, he heard as he approached the meeting ground. His sensei was dressed in a completely black cloak with a mask that only Ranmaru's eyes could see past. He panted. Not all of us can just pop up anywhere we want like you do, sensei. If you really cared about the time, you could have teleported to me and brought me here with you. It would have taken what, 2 seconds of your time? And damn it, he said angrily, I'm not your minion. His sensei tapped him on the forehead hard. Think of it as your training. Stealth training. Minion. Ranmaru glared at his teacher with his bright red eyes. To anyone else, his red glare might have been terrifying. But to someone like his teacher, it was probably only amusing. I hate you so much, sensei, he spat out. Speaking of which, I heard the name you gave yourself. What of it? Kabuto asked for a name and I provided one. But Taiyu no Kurwakokutten? That has to be the most ridiculous name I ever heard. Besides, it sounds like a play on. Ranmaru, I did not come here to hear you crack jokes. I need your report now. You do not have much time to waste either. Alright, Ranmaru grumbled. His teacher was right after all. Ranmaru's illusions were good, but they were still just illusions. Someone would eventually discover that he was missing. Kabuto is getting bolder with the seals you provided him. How so? Is he altering them? No, it's nothing like that, Ranmaru replied. But he's challenging you. He directly defied your orders and placed the seals on warriors marked with the cursed seals of heaven and earth to increase his battle strength. He hasn't made any direct movements against the great villages, but he has intentionally used his spy network to trace missing ninjas and eliminate them for bounties. I believe he's hard-pressed for some money. It's not surprising. After all, he is paying us quite a large sum of money for the dispersion seals. Ranmaru frowned. His sensei didn't seem too worried that Kabuto was straying from the plan. Did his teacher expect this? Or was the money so important that his sensei was willing to compromise? Just what are you doing with all the money you're getting from Kabuto anyway? Foolish apprentice, did you think the weapon that you're carrying on your back was made free of cost? Ranmaru put his hand back to touch his staff. That weapon is the result of over 100 failures. I must remind you, apprentice, that even failures cost money. The amount I have left from my clan funds is impressive, but it is still not infinite. There was a slight pause. It would also appear strange to the banks if I kept burning through money at the rate that I do. Ranmaru lowered his head in shame at that. He hadn't known that his teacher had labored so much to produce the gift. Ranmaru had always had some difficulty molding chakra properly. He would become too fatigued too quickly and many of his techniques would dissipate midway. While he had excellent chakra control, it was almost as if he just didn't have enough chakra to do anything. His initial fighting style had involved using illusions and tricks with his ocular powers while his teacher sought out a viable solution to his problems. The solution had been his 15th birthday gift. The star staff was made of chakra metal and multicolored opal and embedded with a ruby, fire, sapphire, water, emerald, earth, yellow topaz, lightning, and diamond, wind, each special self-sustaining seals that produced its respective chakra. His teacher had been the energy source for 3, while Ranmaru's own chakra somehow was the base for another 2. His teacher said something about how he was able to amplify Ranmaru's chakra to make the fusion work, but most of that went above Ranmaru's head. In any case, with that, the star staff, a staff that only allowed Ranmaru to wield it, had been made. The staff took no chakra to use and acted according to his will. Sorry for my impertinence, sensei, Ranmaru said in an apologetic tone. It was difficult to stay too serious, because his teacher wasn't even a decade older than he was and because his teacher didn't mind the jokes most of the time. So Ranmaru had to constantly remind himself that he owed his life to his teacher. Ranmaru had been working at the curry shop for several years when war broke out across the land. Ranmaru didn't have any marketable skills and was on the verge of starving when his sensei had found him almost 5 years ago. Ranmaru didn't show it too often, but he was truly grateful to have a dedicated mentor and direction in life. It's fine, the man replied. After all, you're not the only person I spend my money on. Little Yuna requires quite a lot of attention as well. That's true. Ranmaru laughed at that. Yuna was a little girl that his teacher found a few years ago. His teacher left her in the care of another one of his associates, but visited her often. Ranmaru also visited whenever he could, and from what he knew, the girl was a handful. In any case, that is irrelevant. Is there anything else? Ah, that reminds me. Were you the one who killed Sakura Haruno? How is that relevant to what Kabuto is doing? Ranmaru could hear a small growl. Ranmaru put up his hands defensively. Don't worry. I'm not trying to waste your time. Kabuto recently heard from his spies in Konoha that she was assassinated. I thought it might be you, but you don't like unnecessary bloodshed. There was a long pause. Essentially yes, although she isn't dead. The seal on her will eventually break and she will wake up. I just needed her out of the way. Konoha either killed her themselves once they found her a waste of space or covered her death up in an attempt to lure me out. Didn't the original plan involve her support? Didn't you want to draw her to our side because of her mastery in medical ninjutsu? I revealed myself to her and presented to her the option of joining us. But she seemed determined to stop my plans, so I had to remove her from the picture. But sensei, then who will take her spot? You know some medical ninjutsu, but you can't take the role of leader, fighter, spy, sealing master, and medic all at once. You're strong, but even you can't completely take over the world by yourself. Ranmaru didn't know the extent of his sensei's plans, but he did know that his teacher wanted to unify the elemental nations. We can't force someone unwilling to join us, his master said curtly. We will have to manage without her. I will begin training Yuna in medical ninjutsu instead. Yuna's chakra control rivals Sakura's and is beyond that of anyone else, so Yuna may end up taking that role in the future. In the meantime, keep spying on Kabuto while pretending to be a loyal Oto ninja for about another month. I shall call upon you once again fairly soon. Wait, Ranmaru looked at his teacher curiously. What about Kabuto? What about him? Ranmaru looked at his sensei disbelievingly. Are you just going to let Kabuto get away with disobeying your orders? He's attacking ninjas now. I will look to the side for now as long as he's not attacking civilians. And besides, he's only attacking missing ninjas who deserve to be killed anyway. It will be a good chance for us to see the results of the seals being tested in real combat against real ninjas. Do you have any reports on how effective they are on the field? Ranmaru frowned. Given that Kabuto has taken missing ninjas out without a single casualty, I think that those seals of yours are too effective. Aren't you worried that he might betray you? His sensei chuckled at that. Oh, he most certainly will. It is the reason those dispersion seals are so inefficient and have a time limit. He has a limited supply. I think he's found a way to create your seals for himself, sensei. It would explain why he has gotten so bold as to defy your orders on multiple fronts. Keep an eye out just in case, but it should be impossible to reverse engineer the dispersion seal without perfectly understanding the branch of Fuinjutsu I personally invented. For its ultimate purpose, it requires a special type of energy not known to most ninjas. I will admit, however, that it is possible for Kabuto to have found a way to extend the life of those seals so that he could use them over and over again. But don't let that bother you. I have a failsafe implanted in the formula in case he's found a way to reuse them. Mind sharing what that is? Ranmaru asked, after realizing that his sensei had purposely left that unclear. Why spoil the fun? Ranmaru shivered at the cold, deadly tone. It was one of those rare moments when he realized that his sensei was one of the deadliest fighters in the world. Palace Hall, Jelal Continent across the seas north of the Land of Wind, March 1, AK-22. It had been 6 years since Karen Uchiha had decided to forgive and then follow Sasuke. It had been the three of them, three former members of Team Hawk. Sasuke had wanted to find truth through exploration and reflection. She and Jugo were absolutely loyal to Sasuke if they followed him. Suigetsu, on the other hand, left them and had decided to rejoin Kiri. She thought back to the past. In end, Orochimaru had never given up his interest in finding the truth of the world through acquiring and experiencing as many techniques as possible and had eventually attacked Sasuke. From Sasuke's account, the mental battle had been even more pathetic than the time when Orochimaru made his first attempt. Sasuke once again absorbed Orochimaru and the power of the White Snake, but this time in less than a minute and this time permanently annihilating Orochimaru's spirit. That had been 5 years ago. After that, for a year, they had traveled throughout the elemental nations, saving villages from bandit attacks and searching for whatever it was that Sasuke was looking for. Sasuke even took up a couple part-time students along the way to impart some of his techniques, although he never let any of them follow. Karen wondered if Sasuke was trying to leave his mark on the world in some way in case he couldn't revive his clan. They now lived in an unnamed land across the seas from the elemental nations. Initially, there had been some opposition to them living in the strange land, but Sasuke personally had crushed any resistance with ease without even killing a single person. It was a show of power and a psychological attack to show that he was far above any of them. Sasuke was sending them a message that he could afford to leave them alive because they were of no concern. It was how Sasuke swiftly became the ruler of the new land. Since then, Sasuke only continued to train daily and become stronger. He trained with such manic obsession that Karen doubted even her distant cousin, Naruto, would be a match for Sasuke. In the elemental countries, the S-ranks were heralded as near-invincible fighters. There were maybe 20 or so S-ranked ninjas in the elemental nations at any one time. Each could completely change the atmosphere on a battlefield. Karen snorted. In her opinion, none of them met the requirements of a true S-rank. A true S-rank is one who has S-ranked capabilities, meaning the ability to easily take down elites, across multiple disciplines. None of the known S-ranks were true S-ranks. Without his lightning armor, which gave him speed, defense, and power, the fourth Raikage was nothing. The sixth Hokage, from what she had heard, severely lacked the endurance to support his S-rank power. The fifth Hokage had only been feared for her physical strength and medical ninjutsu. The fifth Kazekage was also one-dimensional, using only sand as the basis of his fighting style. Even Naruto, the renowned, golden son, of Konoha, was nothing without his endurance and immense chakra reserves. Sasuke, however, was a master of ninjutsu, taijutsu, genjutsu, and weaponry all at the same time, even without his Sharingan. He even had branched into Fuinjutsu. He was the first true S-rank since Hashirama Senju and Madara Uchiha, with no true weaknesses. Karen, she heard Sasuke's voice call out. "Yes, Sasuke." She turned to see her cloaked husband standing a few meters away from her, having just arrived using a space-time ninjutsu. She was annoyed that he kept using his space-time ninjutsu to ignore doors and walls, but she wasn't going to tell him not to. In this land, Sasuke was king and he ruled with an iron fist. While he cared little for formality or verbal respect, he did not accept disobedience. "It is time," she gasped. "But, isn't it too soon? So many projects haven't been completely yet. To start now would be reckless." Karen knew that Sasuke was itching to fight against the elemental nations, but this was madness. They didn't have enough firepower to take down the 5 great villages and the dozens of smaller villages. And that wasn't even counting the conventional forces and legions of samurais they would have to fight against. "No, it might already be too late," Sasuke said in a low tone. "I have just come back from the main continent and seen evidence that the countries are amassing power. Konoha especially is amassing power at a faster rate than we predicted. The low casualty rates they had in the last few years are almost unbelievable. Their quick rise may threaten all our plans. To ease your worries, for now, we will move slowly, using our influence from afar rather than using direct confrontation." Karen frowned. What power could threaten the power of the Jewel Stone? The stone itself is powered by spirit of nature itself. It'll take time, but we'll even be able to perfect the Fuinjutsu we created to prevent the usage of chakra within a certain radius. You know as well as I do that chakra is the lifeblood of any ninja. Even the Bijou would be powerless facing this. Numbers meant nothing if they could perfect their seals. Their seals would render any ninja helpless. Sasuke shook his head. "I'm not certain, but I can feel it in my blood. The Uchiha blood is born for battle and I felt it roar in anticipation while on the main continent. I know at least Naruto Uzumaki will not have sat around for over 6 years doing nothing. He will have found a way to fight even if we drain every bit of chakra from his body. I would never underestimate him. You always used to call him a blockhead, so why the fear now?" Karen asked curiously. She knew that Naruto was strong, but Sasuke never had seemed to respect him. She suspected that it had something to do with their animosity during their genin days, but she was slightly taken aback by the open praise he was giving to his old teammate. Karen, she turned to see Jugo, who had just walked into the hall. This is something only someone who has had a rival would understand. The two of them are incredibly alike, working for the same goal but for different reasons and by using different approaches. Sasuke knows better than anyone that Naruto seeks power. "Power?" Sasuke repeated in a low tone. "Jugo, you're wrong. We both seek justice. He continues to fight to protect the helpless, the poor, and those he loves. I, on the other hand, seek justice for those who have unjustly been killed and forgotten. For us, power is merely a means to an end. If there were a way to achieve what we seek without power, we would have done it. But this world only fears power." Karen nodded. "Yeah. So that's why we've been trying to tap into the power of the Jewel Stone for the past year or so." Sasuke inclined his head slightly in agreement. "The power of the Jewel Stone's strength lies in the fact that it takes away power from the enemy while leaving me with mine. It is about crushing the opposition with a force they cannot fathom. Why not just get stronger?" Jugo interrupted. "With more power, you'll just crush everyone in your way. Why specifically search out a way to limit other people's power?" Sasuke shook his head. Eventually, a human will hit his limit. Ninjutsu, genjutsu, taijutsu. I have hit the physical limits in all of the ninja arts. There is only so much chakra a human body can hold and only so much skill, speed, and strength a person can have. One solution is to seek a new type of power. The other is to take away the power of others to raise your relative power. We are doing both by using the Jello stone. By stripping away chakra, we are removing the lifeblood of the ninjas who will oppose us while we ourselves are using a foreign power unknown to them. I see. That is why you're learning how to fight without chakra, Jugo muttered. And also why you're having us do the same. Another nod. It will take a fantastical amount of power to take on the world. The Jello stone will be something that none of the great villages expect and will allow us to swiftly run through them. Wouldn't that be the case for Naruto Uzumaki as well? What makes him so special? I'm not sure, but I can feel my blood warning me that Naruto Uzumaki will be a threat to my plans. If he does get in the way, this time, Karen stepped back, startled at the sudden appearance of the red eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in her husband's eyes. I will crush him once and for all. For the sake of my justice. For the sake of my family, for the sake of the dead who cry out to me from the other side. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoyed this what if and want to see next part of it, comment down below and let me know. Also share this video with your friends. See you in the next video. Peace.